From the heart of Silicon Valley in the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area, I am Sudipto Chatterjee and this is Economically Speaking with Atanu De. On Economically Speaking, we talk about economic topics and how they affect our world. Atanu, welcome back. How are you?
Well, Sudipto, I am very well. I am back from India, and I suspect you were also back from India.
Yes, that makes two of us, and we must apologize to our listeners because of both of our trips kind of set our schedule into a big problem, and we could not have our regular episode last week.
So we are back on track now.
Yeah, well, at least it's fun when you hear about all the things we've been talking about, and you go to India and discuss the concepts. People really seem to like it. But one of the fun things that happened was I was speaking to a few of my young cousins who always look up to me for give us some nuggets of wisdom, and I always I don't have much to say. But one of the fun things that came up was apparently competition has grown a lot in India right now.
In what way?
Oh, people are trying to enter into a college, and then they're doing their higher secondary after class 12 and they want to go to college. So there are certain FIT-G and other tutorials that you can take to get into the college like an IIT. And the competition has grown to such an extent that there are meta tutorials that help you get into the original tutorials that help you get into those colleges. So it's really growing. There's a lot of people in the market who are doing exactly that.
It's a good topic to discuss actually today. We can talk about what is competition, and is it overall good or is it bad? So let's talk about the fact, what is it that competition is? It's basically a process which is ubiquitous in all living systems, and the competition arises in the natural world, whether it is in the animal world or in the plant world, there is competition for resources. And this process of competition actually drives what we know as what's called Darwinian evolution. And this process is extremely significant in the context of economics and economies. It is actually the same process. The process in its most abstract form refers to the fact that there are limited resources and there are competing interests which try to capture the resource, and which fundamentally drives the process of innovation, the process of entrepreneurship, and so on. In economics, of course, we talk about entrepreneurship, but in the natural world, it is the survival of the entity itself. And there is competition at every level. There's competition at the level of the genes, and that expresses itself in the competition among the carriers of the genes, the entities that carry those genes. So if we were to focus our attention on the economic side of it, we'll understand that competition overall is a good thing, although it is not good for the participants themselves. The participants themselves would prefer not to have to compete, but for the system as a whole, competition is good.
I get the part that participants would not like to have competition at all. If you have too many people competing for a very, very limited resource, so let's say there's just one seat in an engineering college and 1 lakh people are applying for it, how is that a good thing?
It's not a good thing because if you look at it from the point of view of all those people who are going to be disappointed that they didn't get that seat. Mm-hmm. But if you were to just isolate this example and say, okay, is it good for the entire system? In some sense, yes, because competition will then select that one person who is most capable of making the best use of that limited resources, which is that one seat. Now, it is possible that overall, the system needs to have more supply. So the competition will drive up the price in some sense of that seat, and then that will mean that it will give a signal to the people who are in charge of supplying the good or the seat in this case to increase the supply of that. So in from the limited point of view of the participants who do not get that seat, this competition was not a very good competition. But if we look at it, competition from the point of view of the whole system, that is, let's say there are corporations which compete with each other for building a product, which the sellers compete amongst themselves to create a supply that will be sold in the market, that there will be a demand for it. If there is no competition, then the motivation to innovate, to make a thing better, goes away, and therefore we will not have as much progress. So all progress depends upon competition at some level or the other. The fact of evolution is also the same, that if there was no competition among the various life forms, life itself would not evolve, continue to evolve. It will just kind of reach a static plateau.
Okay. You mentioned that less amount of supply is going to drive up the price, and that signals the people who are in charge of supplying the resources or the goods that competition is happening and therefore they should produce more.
Yeah.
What are the other signals that different, or let me step back a bit. In any competition, there's a set of resources and there are a set of competing parties, right?
Yeah.
Is there any other component of a competition as an ecosystem once we think of it?
Fundamentally, the resource has to be in scarce supply, and the people who are competing for it gain some benefit from capturing that resource or getting that resource. On the one side of the market, there are producers who produce stuff, and on the other side of the market, there are people who are, say, demanding or they consume the stuff. So the competition on both sides of the market, that is on the supply side and the demand side, is on the same side. That is, suppliers do not compete with demanders or consumers, and consumers don't actually compete with the producers. It is the competition is limited to on one side or the other of the market. They do not cross over. So Toyota and Honda and GM compete with each other for the market for automobiles. That is the demand for automobiles. And on this side, there are consumers who compete amongst themselves to get the supply that is available. Now, what do you mean by compete amongst themselves? You don't really go and fight with a guy over a Toyota car that is available at your local dealership.
Yes, that
what you're doing is you're competing in some sense because of the prices that there are. If suppose there's one car which is a very popular model and a lot of people want to buy it, but at any particular point in time the supply is limited, so the price gets bidden up, and only those people who are willing to pay the higher price will get part of that supply. That's the same thing that happens when you go to buy an airline ticket. If on a particular date on a particular flight, a lot of people want to be on that flight, the price gets bidden up, and that limited supply is that way allocated to only those people who have the highest willingness to pay. So the people who want to travel on that particular flight on that particular date are competing with each other. So there's competition all the time. And this competition, the simplest model of this competition is what is called an auction. You know what an auction is, right?
Yeah.
How do you describe an auction?
There is one or a single resource that is about to be sold. Many people are bidding for it, and then somebody who is in charge of running the whole thing smoothly.
Yeah. So an auction is what you just described is called an increasing price English auction. In that, there's a particular item, let's say a painting by a famous painter, and that is up for auction. So the auctioneer calls out a price, and at that particular price, it might be that there are, say, a dozen people who want to buy it. So because there's only one of them, but you have a dozen people, you cannot allocate that to anyone without actually increasing the price. So then the price goes up, let's say, from $1,000 to $2,000. And at $2,000, some of the people who were willing to pay $1,000 drop out of the auction because their private valuation of that painting is not $2,000. So as the price keeps on increasing, more and more people drop out because the price at that point is higher than what they value the painting at. Ultimately, the price might reach, let's say, $25,000, and there's only one person left. So that person actually wins the auction. So this is an auction where the price keeps on increasing till the point there's only one buyer left in the market. Now, when you go to buy a gallon of milk in the supermarket, you're not really doing that. In a sense, though, you are exactly bidding for the same thing. It's called a fixed price auction, where they have fixed the price of all gallons of milk in that supermarket on that day, and whoever is willing to pay that price gets a gallon of milk. In this case, of course, there's more than 1 gallon of milk, but the number of gallons of milk is still limited. And if the price is so low that more people want it than is available, then you'll have a shortage. And if the price of milk is so high that only a few people want to buy it, then you'll have a surplus. And a proper market, a proper price in that market would be the market price at which the number of gallons of milk is exactly equal to the number of people who want to buy, is exactly equal to the amount of milk that people on the aggregate want to buy. So here we have competition, but it is not so clear as the competition in the case of one item being auctioned to a large number of people.
Right. So let me understand this fixed price auction a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
There are X, or let's say just 10 gallons of milk, 10 1-gallon bottles of milk in the supermarket.
Yeah.
If 11 people show up to buy those bottles, then the first people who show up there get the milk, and then that's right?
Yeah, so the 11th person doesn't get the gallon of milk that he would like to buy at that price because there were only 10 and 10 people went and got it before him.
And even though that person was ready to pay the price that the supermarket was asking.
Yeah, so one way to look upon it is to say that the price at the supermarket at that date for that milk was too low for the markets to clear. That is, there was a shortage at that point. Let's assume that over time, the supermarket finds that most of the time they run out of milk.
Mm-hmm.
And there are two ways to deal with this. One is they can start getting a higher supply of milk. So instead of just getting 10 gallons of milk, let's say they start getting 12 gallons of milk. And at that same price, they find that people come and do buy the milk. And nobody is unsatisfied. Nobody complains to the store manager saying, hey, I came for milk, but there's none here. So at that point, markets are clearing. Now, the thing is that once in a while, you might have, for some reason, a shortage. One day you go to the store and it's not there. But this shortage can only be temporary and once in a while, that is occasional. But suppose there's a continuous shortage over time, weeks go by and so on. During that time, there's adjustment goes on where the store manager decides that they probably need to carry more milk. There's more demand for it. So that's how one way of adjusting. Another way of adjusting is that they do not change the amount of supply, that is the amount of milk that they put out on the shelves, but they actually increase the price of the milk. So if they increase the price of the milk, then again, there will be fewer people wanting to buy it, and again, supply and then demand come into balance. So here we are seeing that there is competition going on among the buyers, and the way the milk is allocated in some sense, the way it is rationed is through the price mechanism. You could have other mechanisms for rationing also. You could have said that people who first come, first serve. That's one way, which is what normally happens. If you go to the store and you're too late, the supply is over, you're out of luck. Competition, it has been there, although it is not very evident. Now, competition, like I said, is a process which drives innovation. What kind of innovation are we talking about? Imagine that there is some technology that people have which gives them the ability to produce something which nobody else knows how to produce. So they are a monopoly supplier in that market. And because they are a monopoly supplier, they can then decide the price at which they will be able to, they'd like to sell their product. So this is a monopoly situation where there is only one seller and there are a number of buyers. And the buyers have different willingness to pay for this item. Okay? Now you remember the story is that there's a one supplier who is, let's say, producing some special widget. And the special widget is something that only they know how to produce. And then there are a lot of buyers in the market, and buyers are not homogeneous in the sense that they have different willingness to pay for that special widget. So then depending upon how the supplier actually prices the special widget, they'll have more or less number of buyers. And as a monopolist, they have the ability and the luxury to decide the price. Because depending upon the price, if they decide on a very high price, there will be fewer people buying it. Or if they price it very low, there will be a lot of people buying it. Now, what is the appropriate price for the monopoly supplier to price its product?
Yes, that is $1 million question that I'm wondering about right now.
Well, it's not that difficult. Think about it. That if they price it very high, okay, then they'll have very few customers. Let's say they get only 10 customers at a price of $100, right? Mm-hmm. So 10 customers, $100, what is the revenue, total revenue?
$1,000.
$1,000.
Yeah, $1,000.
Let's say they actually price it at $10.
Okay.
And at that $10, they get 2,000 customers. So that 2,000 times 10 is their total revenue is what?
20,000.
20,000. So earlier on it was $1,000, and now they're getting $20,000.
Right.
So the revenue is much higher when their price is low. Now the question is, what is the cost of their widget, special widgets? How much does it cost for them to produce it? Right. Let us assume that it costs them only $1 to produce that special widget. Mm-hmm. It's a very small amount, the production. So when they priced it at 100, they were producing it at $1 and selling it at 100. Their profits were $99 per widget.
Yeah. But
they were only selling 10 of it.
Mm-hmm.
So 99 times 10 is $990 profit. But in the second case, when they were selling 2,000 of those widgets, on each widget they were making a profit of $9. Mm-hmm. So their profit in this case is $18,000. Right. So in this case, the monopolist actually tries to maximize its profits. And the way it tries to maximize its profit is figure out how much it costs, how much will be the unit sold at the time, at that particular price, and they can figure it out. It's a simple exercise. Yeah, but then in this case, as we are saying, in this case, there are very few suppliers. There's only one supplier. What happens when there are multiple suppliers? Then the price comes down to the point which is very close to the costs. And that we can explore the next time, because I think this idea of competition is extremely extremely interesting.
Yeah.
Because it goes into every aspect of our life, from from politics to economics to life itself.
Yeah, it's fascinating that Darwinian evolution and competition actually are playing its role in even a monopoly market like we were just talking about. That's
Right.
Well, thank you for your time, Atanu.
Okay, we'll catch you the next time. You take care.
And next time we'll probably dig a little deeper into all the different kinds of competition and auction.
Right. Okay. Talk to you then.
Talk to you then. Bye-bye. Yes, time is money. We have heard that so many times, but I'm looking forward to the next episode where I can finally have some economic
justification, an economic justification of the old adage, time is money.
Yes, then I'll appear more wise than I am. Thank you, Atanu. Thank you so much for educating us. Hope you have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you very much. You have a good one. Bye.
Bye. That's it for this week, people. But don't forget to leave us your questions on Facebook at facebook.com/economically speaking. Our Twitter handle is @econspeaking. Each week, we chat with Atanu De on matters generally related to economics. This is Economically Speaking with your host Sudipto Chatterjee. Until next time, goodbye.